Welcome to this video. My name is Mark Scythian. The date today is September 8, 2024. The title of this lecture is Food Groups Plus Warning. So this falls under Biophysics. So we start with the first of three food groups, carbohydrates. Has an energy density of 4 calories per gram. It is processed by saliva plus chewing to then yield amylase, which then goes through stomach digestion, passes into the small intestine, then permeates through the small intestine villi and enters the bloodstream as glucose, chemical structure C6H12O6, must bond with oxygen gas. So now we have a glucose pairing, and when this happens, the glucose-oxygen pair passes through the cell membrane into the cell's mitochondria, for which both the glucose and the oxygen cancel each other out and become caloric energy. So if we are discharging or releasing 1 calorie per second, which is a little high, but we'll use a metric of 1 calorie per second times a cellular conversion efficiency of 95%, we then release 3.97 watts of power, or approximately 3 foot-pounds per second. So that is a little high. Sedentary metabolism is about 0.07 calories per second. Next, we have fats, energy density 9 calories per gram, processed through bile in the pancreas. So excess fats just pass through the small and large intestine and are excreted if not processed by bile. So the actual function of fats is to accelerate carbohydrate metabolism. Then we have the third of three food groups, proteins, 4 calories per gram, which yield into peptides after hydrochloric acid digestion in the stomach. So the purpose of the peptides, or the amino acids, is to build cells, DNA molecules, and stem cells. So the stem cells are blank cells that get a signal and then they turn into whatever cells needed. The purpose of the DNA molecules is functioning as a cell factory to produce new cells to replace old cells. So water, assuming purified water, free of industrial waste, is a liquid crystal. And when it passes through the body, it will then convert into structured water or a form of a gel with varying electrochemical viscosities. So if we improve on a gel from just plasma or lymphatic fluid or blood, we could also pair them with stem cells and DNA codons to then yield the formation of body parts cell by cell. So if we introduce the warning, skull and crossbones, refined sugar, which includes also synthetic sugars that are engineered from polymer sources, including various forms of crude oil, because we look at C6H12O22 or O17, and we have all these synthetic sugars that are a little too tasty. They're not real sugars, but we'll call them refined sugars. And so what happens when these enter the body? People complain about high blood sugar. More than likely, it's not from the carbohydrates, it is from taking these synthetic sugars. And so the basic premise why they're poisonous is that they are so energy dense that there is insufficient oxygen gas to metabolize and pair with this type of a sugar. So they tend to free flow in the bloodstream as an unpaired, non-oxidized synthetic sugar, which is very dangerous actually. And so the body will do two things. It will either convert it to lactic acid and bind muscles, create inflammation, or it will convert that synthetic sugar into fat. So the fat you eat from fatty foods is typically not coming from the fat in the food, but it's coming from the refined sugar. And to protect you from an insulin surge or insulin shock, which could be fatal, the body will quickly either convert the refined sugar excess into lactic acid or a high density triglyceride, or what people call the fat they see on people's bodies. So it's all coming from the refined sugar, which may or may not be correlating with addiction to the level of drug addiction. So other adverse effects of high blood sugar caused from consuming refined sugar found in soft drinks and many very tasty but very poisonous sweets and cakes is the onset of blood dehydration. So we have the refined sugar poisoning in the body, and this is going to accelerate blood dehydration by a factor of 3 or 300%. So if we do a really good job of dehydrating the blood through dehydration and refined sugar consumption, we get two symptoms known as strokes and heart attacks, because the blood is just not low enough in viscosity to flow. Then we have cell membrane impermeability, CMI, and this is when the oxygen-glucose pairing from normal carbohydrates is unable to penetrate past the cell membrane wall into the cell, and that symptom is known as diabetes. So if the blood is too dehydrated and too poisoned with refined sugar, then the glucose, the normal glucose oxygen pairs cannot enter the cell wall due to cell wall impermeability or cell membrane impermeability. And this is mainly caused by dehydration. So just imagine you dehydrate the blood and then you dehydrate the rest of the body, and then the cell membranes become very brittle and tough and hard to penetrate. So the only purpose of insulin is to open up the cell membrane to let glucose oxygen pairs enter. However, if the body is well hydrated, there is a level of neutral state permeability to where glucose and oxygen can freely penetrate into cells, and the molecule known as curcumin found in turmeric really does a good job in maintaining cell permeability constants. So very little, or I want to say no, but a tiny amount of insulin is even needed to push the glucose oxygen pairs into the cell membrane, with little or even almost no insulin required. So if one were to cut out the refined sugar consumption and stay well hydrated by means of purified water, and then adding some curcumin, turmeric to their diet, they would have a very well permeable cell membrane. And these are the people who look 20 years younger than their actual age, because they're running a very good energy flow. So basically, the lack of water hydration and purified water hydration and the poisoning of refined sugar then simply make the cell membranes hardened, so glucose and oxygen cannot enter. That symptom is known as diabetes, followed by making the blood dehydrated or very sticky, which then results in the symptoms known as stroke and heart attack. So then we also have an adverse effect of cell membrane impermeability is cell DNA damage. So if this continues on as a normality and the body has to fight the refined sugar and convert it to fat, and then there's this constant blood dehydration, and there's a constant cell dehydration made accelerated by refined sugar poisoning, which is also a diuretic and a dehydration compound. We then have these very sticky, brittle cell membranes, and that's what we call diabetes. But then if we keep doing that over and over and over and over and over for years and years, there's so much cell DNA damage that may occur. Some people do it and their genetics just find a way around it. But I'm talking about it increases the probability. So nothing is absolutely certain, everything's statistics, but the measurement is that you increase the likelihood of cancer. So you have just defective, erratic cells that are equivalent to a car in a junkyard, whereas a healthy cell is a brand new race car out of the factory. And so again, there isn't the energy curve in a cancer cell, so the only way it could survive is through high amounts of refined sugar, something with high energy density. And then there's the ability of that cancer cell to reproduce and take over the body. So as long as it's not past the point of no return, all these diseases are preventable by just cutting out the refined sugar and increasing the purified water hydration. So that being said, fasting plus purified water hydration equals disease prevention and anti-aging. So thank you for watching this video and have a great day.